Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watch You Want, and thanks for logging on. I'm here with Josh Thanos.
Hey guys.
Lead watch buyer for Golfberg and Watch You Want. Well, it is Friday, we've survived the week, and we're here to discuss
Just barely.
the weekend watches.
That's right.
Thank you all for joining us from places far flung. I want to remind everyone that if you like my old style wrist reviews, you can still get those in the 5 to 7 minute quick hits on my Watch You Want Watch Reviews channel. And if those of you who are subscribed have been wondering why you haven't received notifications, it's because we've taken something like 30 watches live this week without notifications. My apologies. But they're there. Enjoy. Subscribe and we'll let you know. The best way to see my watch reviews is to get them delivered directly via the watch. Yeah, see, I mess up too, guys. Via the Golfberg Watchbox app. It's the easiest way to get new videos, news, reviews, and information you can use of luxury watches, and you can tailor your content stream just to get the magazines, videos, and blogs that you like best. There's also a real-time tracking AI to give you the value of one watch, every watch, or a particular watch you don't own in your collection. Speculating on what you might buy next? Know the value in real time thanks to our AI, which pulls from the entire internet, as well as our proprietary Watch You Want Golfberg database. Okay.
Is that Skynet?
Well, not yet, but it's getting there.
All right.
Okay. Nuts and bolts. Josh, wrist shot. What are you wearing?
Trusty old 380. Haven't worn it in a while. I've been wearing the aerospace as my daily wear every day. And today I looked at it and I said, you know what, old friend, let's go for a run. So today I'm wearing the PAM 380. It's actually the lowest price point Panerai you can buy, and in my opinion, probably one of the best. Like if you're a Panerai collector and you want to have a Radiomir in your collection, just go for the 380. It doesn't make sense to get anything else.
It's such a good value. I think you've spent more money on straps at this point than you actually spent on the watch.
Oh yeah, so right now my Panerai collection is down to about 2 Panerais, and I have at least 30 straps. Yeah.
And by the way, guys, that's the logo at 6 o'clock getting covered by the combination of glare and the hour hand.
Yeah, let's see.
That's a modern classic wire lug Panerai Radiomir. Okay, so
Absolutely.
Yeah, pull it off. Show them what you got.
Let's
now.
do it.
Let's do a in-depth wrist check, guys.
It's been a while, man. All right. How are we doing right there? Is that good? Hey.
Macro camera.
All right, cool.
Rescue me. Okay,
All right.
no problem. And for my part, I've got my trusty Bucherer Duomet. It's my white gold chronograph. It's flying away, as you can see. 2 movements, 1 case, 1 watch. That's the Duomet. My original Grail watch, and we've been together 4 years, and it's a happy relationship. Love at first sight.
Yeah, Dr. David Kim actually just picked up one of those at your suggestion.
Dr. Kim, excellent choice. You will not be disappointed. Like I said,
badass watch.
Working on half a decade.
I think you're running up the market on that watch, honestly. I've had people say, hey, is that the Duomet that Tim wears? Okay, all right, let's make a deal on that. Like, all right.
Hey, not for sale. All the same. Guys, welcome. I see we've got quite a few friends joining us. Scott Hockenberry, you were first in the chat tonight. I also see Tom P., A. Wilson, Ruhina, Valblitz, Alexi, Don Gizzle joining us from Germany, our favorite scorpion breeder. Of course, we've got Noah Grimby B, Lucian, Dex, and Dave. Welcome, folks. Also, Bert joining us from Scotland, and Henry from Colorado, or is that Henri? I want to get it right. Okay, let's move out into the testing zone. We've done our wrist shots. Let's play this or that.
Okay,
Tonight,
let's do it.
I might have stacked the deck in favor of a favorite of Josh's. But anyway, I'm going to give you the chance.
All right.
Panerai Radiomir 1940 3 Days Automatic PAM 620.
Right.
Okay. Or Carl F. Bucherer Patravi EvoTec Day-Date. Okay, now I talked about dress watches and sports watches that could go either way the other day. I said some sports watches could pass as dress watches and vice versa. And these are 2 watches that I think are sitting right on the borderline. Big and aggressive, nevertheless, they're not all-out tool timepieces. So Josh, which one do you pick for yourself?
So, I mean, as you would assume, I'm going to start off and we'll do it this way. I'm picking the Panerai. And the reason is not because I love Panerai, but and not because I don't like Bucherer, because CFB actually creates a pretty good value play if you buy them pre-owned, because they're not going to hold a ton of value. So, but the great thing about the 620 is it's a very interesting watch, right? So when you see that watch first, it's a 1940s Radiomir case, so it doesn't have the wire lugs. It has those Luminor lugs that you see. That they combine the cases essentially, right? So if you see the watch in person, it's almost the opposite of most Panerais, right? Most Panerais look great on the table. You put them on your wrist, they're too big, right? Would you agree?
I would say so.
Yeah. So this watch actually looks way too small on the table. You put it on your wrist and it fits like a freaking dream. The first time I tried it on, I'm like, oh look, a lady's Panerai. I put it on and I go, oh wait, no, this is something for me. It works almost the opposite of my Radiomir, my wire lug Radiomir. So the great thing about the wire lug Radiomir is that, like we always talk about, so if we can get the macro shot.
For contrast.
Right. So this watch has essentially no lugs. So the entire case is what sits on your wrist. So even though it's a 45 millimeter and there's really no other 45 millimeter watch I can pull off, this watch sits on my wrist like a freaking dream. So the 620 is almost the opposite. So that watch is a 42 millimeter, which can be somewhat small for most people, and it's very thin. So it's actually wears like thinner than, say, like a 42 millimeter Explorer 2.
It's 11 millimeters, guys. 11 millimeters, just to keep score. It's about 1.5 millimeters less than a Submariner.
Okay, so there you go. To put it in contrast, it's exactly. So it's thinner than a Submariner on the wrist. So it's going to wear almost like a 40 millimeter, but because of those lugs, it compensates and makes the watch a little bit longer on the wrist. So it fits absolutely perfect. And the cool thing about it is, there's no dress watches from Panerai, right? Like sometimes I try to claim that this is a dress watch.
There's
from
the Duet, but that's almost like that's an unofficial Panerai
right.
to some purists.
Exactly. So if you want to get like a core piece from Panerai, it's a dress watch. It doesn't really exist. This watch absolutely can work that way. It's going to be what's the water resistance on this? Do you know?
100 meters. It's legit. The Duet is 30 meters. That's why we say we hesitate to call that a Luminor.
Right.
But this is nice because, like Josh says, the 1940 case has big, masculine integrated lugs. It's not like the wire lugs, which are graceful.
Feminine? Is that what you're saying?
I would say they're a little bit softer, but
right,
they fit more easily. This is a watch that's 42 millimeters by 11 millimeters thick, but it's got a big wrist stance, which means it's never going to look petite. But it's thin enough that you could pass it off as a dress watch, and with the caliber 4000 micro rotor, which is both technically interesting to you horology guys who kind of shy away from Panerai,
right.
and it's nice and slim. Plus, with the 3-day power reserve, you've still got enough power reserve that you could rotate through this watch, throw on a submersible for the weekend, put this back on Monday morning, and it's still ticking.
Right. Bronze horizons for Panerai. The micro rotor is super cool. I wouldn't say that, listen, I like Panerai not because of their movements, mostly because of the utility of the watch and the history and things like that. Panerai has been investing more into in-house movements and micro rotors and things like that to try to, I think, broaden their customer base. I think it's working somewhat, though I don't know many people who are thinking about like intricacies of handmade movements or thinking, hey, Panerai is a good way to go. But it does bring that side of the market, I believe.
We have a very cool PAM 520 that I'm going to be reviewing on my Watch You Want Watch Reviews channel, where you can actually see a handmade movement from Minerva in a Panerai watch.
Yeah,
I will say, for me, I'm going to go, if I were to pick one of these for myself, it's not a snob thing, and it's not an aversion to Panerai, because I do like the brand, and I do like the Cal 4000 micro rotor, but I would go with the Carl F. Bucherer Patravi EvoTec Day-Date, because one reason and one reason alone. They were ambitious enough to build a nice-looking watch around the previously intractable peripheral rotor. This is the CFB A1001 movement, and it is a peripheral rotor. The rotor moves around the caliber. It doesn't block the center. It's not a micro rotor. This is something that Patek tried with the caliber 350 and the 350i. In recent years, we've seen it from Audemars in Grand Complications, Vacheron in Grand Complications, Breguet in Grand Complications. How about a watch that people can actually buy? This is a $9,900 watch. The Panerai, for comparison, is $10,000. So we are talking apples to apples price class here.
Right.
50 meters water resistant. I take it seriously as a 50 because it has a screw down crown. So on a different strap, I would swim with this watch. And I think you get good value because this is a largely handmade and regulated movement with a 55-hour power reserve, a very cool peripheral rotor, which you can see on the image as the black and light shaded sections of the ring around the movement, and then there's a full clasp which has triggers and actually tucks the excess underneath the clasp body. So I feel like even the accessories that you're getting, like the strap and the clasp, are a little bit more upscale here. Plus, I like the complication, and there's also a philosophy here. You're a minimalist, you like the Panerai. You like complications, maybe the Day-Date speaks to you.
Right, yeah, it makes sense. And the thing that's drawing me back from the Carl F. Bucherer is the case shape, right? it's not their main core piece, right? If they were to throw that movement, and I wonder, is that movement in with the peripheral rotor in any of their other cases?
They are working it through the range. There's also the CFB A2000, which is a somewhat simplified version of it that's found in more models than the Patravi and
the fact that it has
range.
peripheral rotor is freaking awesome.
The fact that it works. I mean, before that was always a stunt in like watches that would be built in copies of 20. So I really like that. But you know, I do think that it's a watch that sort of straddles the fence. It's not a dress watch. It's not a sports watch. It's kind of a big all-arounder. For practical purposes, it is thicker. It's 14 millimeters. It's about 44 millimeters square on the wrist.
Right.
I have a question about the PAM 682.
Okay.
And will I review the PAM 682? I will review the PAM 682 on my Watch You Want Watch Reviews channel, so stay tuned. All right, guys, big news this week, and I think the news this week was the Zenith Defy Lab. So Zennith, of course, has been looking to reinvent itself, and it came out and made a big splash. Well, as big a splash as a 10-piece limited edition can make. So a limited edition of 10 pieces, essentially cast in a metallic foam that's lighter than aluminum, and it features, it's 44 millimeters, features a case with material from Hublot, which is called Aeronith. You can see that granular texture that it has, yet it does have water resistance. It's not a complete sieve. And it has a caliber ZO342, which has a 72-hour power reserve, but because of a sort of monocrystalline oscillator that works on a resonance principle, for 57 hours of that 72 hours, it maintains complete isochronism to the point where it will be accurate to 0.3 seconds per day. Now you can see in that image on the screen that the oscillator sits just below the open-worked dial. So they're clearly proud of this. And the watch itself has a completely singular oscillation rate of 108,000 vibrations per hour. So in shorthand, 15 hertz. For comparison, an El Primero, previously the benchmark for high beat mechanical movements, is 36,000 vibrations per hour. Yes, AP and Breguet worked at a little higher rate, but this thing sets the mark. The other thing is, when I look at it, the indexing system in which this oscillator essentially indexes a wheel as it vibrates is a sort of purely mechanical version of what Bulova first accomplished in the 60s with the Accutron, only then it was a tuning fork, a servo coil, a transistor, and a battery upstream of the pulse and the indexing. Here, it's a spring, a drivetrain, an oscillator, and silicon pulse indexing the wheel. But the principle is very similar. Now, the thing is, it's going to be much better than a chronometer. Chronometer is +6, -4 over a 24-hour period for 2 weeks. This thing is going to be fractions of a second per day. While mechanical watches in chronometry trials have made these numbers before, and I know back in 2009 a JLC Tourbillon made those numbers, this is the first time a watch that arrives with a warranty is being billed as that kind of accurate, with a guarantee from the factory. I'm going to blow right through this real quick. It was developed, this is LVMH corporate tech that came over from Tag Heuer. It was developed by this guy, quite literally this guy, that's Guy Simon. He is the head of Tag Heuer Advanced Materials and Engineering, and he's the guy behind things like the Caliber 360s, the Microterre, the V4 Monaco belt-driven movements. This is now finding its way to other companies within the family, and Zennith is one of the first beneficiaries. Now, it's been coming for a while, this kind of technology, guys. And by the way, Josh, I haven't forgotten about you. This was, back in 2001, sort of the first edition of silicon in the watch. This was with the original Freak 1. Of course, the Freak featured a silicon set of oscillator and dual impulse escapement wheels with unique profiling. Essentially, silicon and a direct impulse escapement, pioneering for its architecture and its materials. Then there was the Resonique system by De Bethune about a decade later. And if you look at that oscillator at the end of that chain, it's very similar to what Zennith is doing. This was a theory prototyped in 2012. Then in 2015, we saw something called the Génicond regulator, which was more of a concept than a prototype from Vaucher Manufacture, the movement house for Parmigiani, developed into the Sunfine system. The Sunfine system, sort of a pre-production version of what this would look like in a wearable watch. Ultimately, GP used the same kind of flexible silicon componentry in the constant escapement, and then we later saw that same flexible silicon principle developed in the Ulysse Nardin Anchor Tourbillon. Which brings us to the present era, where I think we're going to see, Josh, a divergence between the world of manual labor in luxury watches, so things that are imperfect and handmade, hand-finished, hand-regulated, and we're going to see the arrival of industrial production in high horology. This is going to be the other one. By the way, that's the oscillator in the Zenith in the photo-etched disc in which it emerges from the machine that makes it. So I think we're going to see these high-tech, industrial, like chronometry-driven, tech-oriented luxury watches, and then kind of the caveman watches that are manual labor.
Well, that reminds me, we met with Vermont this week, and that's a lot of that. That's where they're going towards. They're going towards high technology. They're working with the military, so super high-grade materials and manufacturing process and stuff. And I agree. You probably see a divergent. And I wonder how that's going to affect price and also market on these things.
The other thing is, there will be reduced service needs. It's not just to create a high-tech watch for nerds so that you can say, my mechanical watch, is 0.3 second accurate per day. That's the PAM 700 ID Lab, a watch with a 50-year warranty that requires no scheduled maintenance. So, Josh, let me ask, two roads diverge. Which one do you take? Handmade manual labor, imperfect and only accurate? Would you take accurate, but mostly machine-made?
I mean, for me, the one thing that I like about watches themselves is that there's a human connection there, right? There's hard work put into there. So in that regard, I'd say I'd go down the handmade avenue. But I mean, there's no reason you can't have both. You can. If I'm going to have a collection, why not have a few watches that I know are going to be, painstakingly made by hand, and then some other watches that are made from high-tech materials and manufacturing processes that are also, engineers exist, right? And they're going to have to engineer it. So robots aren't engineering the watches. So, there's still going to be a human element to it, but it's, we're using all of the technology available. So, I can see going down both avenues, and it's just going to create, more diversity in the market. Right?
Choice.
Yeah, choice. Yeah.
But I do think we're going to see just a divergence between the luxury watch that's luxury by virtue of the technology in it, and will be priced high because very smart people and advanced processes have to be developed to make these photo-etched parts, to assemble them. Like the Hublot Unico movement, it's assembled and oiled largely by machines.
That's right.
That's a phenomenal feat of engineering, but it's not necessarily romantic. It's almost like we're going into a world where we still have Kentucky racehorses, but we also have Formula One cars. Neither one is cheap, but there's definitely a split. They are different sports.
Well, there's, in supercars, you have the NSX, which is the high technology supercar, and then you have something like, a Ferrari F28 or something like that, right? That's, it's going to be made by hand or, something along those lines. So I think they can exist together. I don't think one's going to overtake the other, or it's going to hurt the market, or just going to create diversity.
And the interesting thing is, and I give Zenith credit because they're doing both of these in-house. I showed you the Georges Favre-Charcot Fusée, which is beautiful, beautifully handmade, beautifully hand-finished. They're also doing parts that, frankly, a human being can't touch once they're made, because this oscillator in the Defy Lab is then coated in silicon oxide, meaning that even if you wanted to do something like hand file it to add a little bit of beveled anglage, you would break that surface coating, create stress risers, and probably result in that piece failing. So it's almost as if it's born perfect, whereas with the old style watch, the parts come out rough and you have to bring them, you have to elevate them to perfection with hand finishing. So, okay, so let's see what's going on in the chat box tonight. Is Zennith going to be part of, I think Watch Yoda is asking, is Zennith going to create a new El Primero? I think you'll see something like an El Primero 2 down the road. I think at some point you'll see something along the lines of the technology introduced in the Defy 21 find its way into the mainstream lineup. So I think you'll start seeing oscillators in synthetics. I think you might start to see silicon escapement components matched with silicon hairsprings, which so far Zenith hasn't done. And I do think you'll see at some point a vertical clutch architecture brought in to replace the old lateral system. Okay.
Here. Is it Regina?
Yes.
Regina's asking if a Blancpain 50 fathoms just just time only is something that they can invest in right now, because I think Blancpain is moving towards more of the Bathscape and things like that. I'm guessing that's the reason for the question.
So if they buy it pre-owned,
right,
are they going to lose anything?
Well, I mean, right now I'd say that that's a watch that's fully depreciated. So if you do buy it pre-owned from a reputable source with box of papers and things like that, the watch is going to be worth roughly what you pay for it.
Yes.
As far as an investment, something that you're buying in order to make money, I'd say no, Blancpain is not a brand that you'd want to invest in. And really, watches as a whole, we've talked about it before, not really a great investment. Though, this year we've seen certain things like Patek Philippe Nautiluses go absolutely insane in price. You see Rolex sport watches, you see the original Kermits, the Pepsis, now even Hulks and Batmans, one that are regular production watches that are selling at near or sometimes even a little bit above the original retail price. So there are some certain investments. It's usually a little bubble, or maybe you get lucky and you buy a Submariner in the early 1960s and you keep it in your closet for 50 years.
Yeah, if it sits in your closet, it's a time capsule piece. You get money for it, but you never had the fun of wearing it.
Right, exactly.
I would say this: just about all those watches that Josh just mentioned, one common thread. Popular steel sports models.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's always a good place to start. I would say the 5015 50 Fathoms is one of the few non-JLC watches that's on my short list for when that roadmap is complete. Beautiful watch, the Cadillac of divers, beautiful and beautifully made with a great caliber. But if you want to invest in 50 Fathoms, go with a well-known source that you trust, that backs what it sells, and buy a vintage 50 Fathoms.
Oh, yeah.
Buy a mil-spec, buy a Tournec Rayville, buy a mil-spec 1 or 2, buy one of the early LIP models retailed in France. If you can get yourself a Marine Nationale, French Navy version, and again, someone who knows their stuff in vintage, sells it to you and backs it unconditionally as authentic, that's the Blancpain 50 Fathoms to buy. Because in the last 5 years, those watches went from a complete non-entity on the market to suddenly almost as hot as Rolex.
Yeah. You see a lot of dive watches. That's what you're seeing. Like there was a resurgence in the dive watch where like a lot of watches went crazy to making huge oceanographic Hublots and big submersible Panerais, which things are coming back down to earth, where now all those vintage dive watches, which were actually smaller than the large watches that were selling before, are coming back into style. So like now you can wear those again. They make sense, you know?
So yeah, buy the 5015, buy it pre-owned if you want to lose nothing, buy it brand new if you want the shiny feeling. Again, great watches. But I just have to be completely honest, no late model pre-owned watch that's still in production is going to make you money.
Yeah.
That's a general rule of thumb.
Right.
Okay, so moving down the lot, we've got some interesting notes on the Apple Watch Series 3. Speaking of mass production, I was talking about mass production of high horology watches. Now we're just talking about mass production, period. The Apple Watch Series 3 came out this week. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone who knows watches this week was talking about that Zenith Defy Lab. Everyone, period, was talking about this. And it's interesting to ask, 38 millimeters or 42, prices from $399 to $1,399. Now with cellular, works with Siri, streams music.
Right.
5 ATM water resistant, swims safely now. Amazing. It took 3 years to figure that out. But favors workout functions too. Now it can count your steps to the bitter end. Okay, but here's the thing. Apple also declared itself the world's second largest watchmaker, and I think it's worth asking, in the context of the impact of this watch, what that really means. Because, I mean, does it matter? Switzerland produced about 29,900,000 watches last year, and about 670 million came streaming out of the Big C, which is the world's leading watchmaker by volume.
PRC. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Your old haunt.
There you go.
So, with Apple, too.
That's right.
This man selling unlocked iPhones in China when he was like 23.
And that was before China, but yeah.
Entrepreneur. But my point is that if this were a numbers game, the game would be up for Switzerland, but it's not a numbers game. So I think the talking point analysis is it doesn't really matter where Apple ranks in terms of the number of watches it makes, because it plays to a completely different market.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure it's a threat to luxury watches in any way.
No, I don't think so. In fact, it's funny. So just before this show started here, I was like 6 blocks away, meeting with a customer who was in town. We were looking at a Panerai that he wanted to see, and the conversation went from the Panerai, which he decided to purchase, to then the Apple Watch, which he's also going to be purchasing. So it's really, that's more of an accessory to your lifestyle than it is like a luxury good that you want to collect, right? They're not collectible really in any fashion, right? Electronics become obsolete, whereas watches start that way, right?
Exactly. I have, and I'm going to share this with you.
Oh, geez,
this created.
Oh, okay.
This created the first 800 videos on Watch You Want Inc.
Is the iPhone 1?
This is an, yeah, right. this is an iPod. No, this is an iPhone 5 from 4 years ago.
Oh, geez.
It's still going.
Ancient.
This is a record holder. So if you get half as many years out of an Apple Watch Series 3, I consider you a champion. But here's the other thing. Not a threat to luxury watches. You can own both.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately there'll probably be like a little caddy feature so you can clip your Apple Watch to the bottom of your luxury watch
We've
strap.
already seen that before, yeah.
Yeah, so that exists.
Yeah, and there I've seen some, I don't know if they're prototypes or whatnot, but like literally there's stickers with microchips on the bottom that create sensors that will take like your heartbeat and your blood pressure and all that stuff. You can put it on the back of your watch. I've seen all sorts of different things like that.
So anything is possible, and
Yeah.
all of this without causing the luxury watch to suffer at all. Now, if you're Fossil and you're selling $300 to $700 watches, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
But luxury, not so much. Now, here's the thing. Friend or foe, I think we agree that it's not a foe. If anything, it gets people talking about watches, but I also want to attack the opposite side of the coin, where people say, oh, this is going to be a great gateway for people to get into watches.
Well, I have to say, in fact, you met someone last week who
Yes.
that is exactly the situation.
happened.
Our friend Sam, who came and visited us this week because of your videos, he got back into watches. He said he hadn't been wearing a watch for 40 years. He got an Apple Watch. He was wearing it every day, got used to wearing a watch, and then decided, now I got to get into luxury watches.
Oh, that's good.
So there you go.
Well, you see, that can happen, but I'm thinking more for the younger crowd.
Okay.
So we're talking about the younger people. We're often told that the Apple Watch is going to be the first watch for someone who's, a millennial in his early 20s and winds up at the end of the line wearing some sort of Patek Grand complication. So the narrative arc of the Apple Watch owner, of the younger persuasion, not the luxury watch buyer who just jumps into the deep end. But I don't necessarily think that this is going to be a gateway like people imagine. I think that the gateway to luxury watches more often is going to come via exposing younger people to things like classic cars, motorcycles, vintage tube amps.
So just collectibles.
Single barrel bourbon, not necessarily collectibles, but things that are a little bit slower,
Sure,
of an
okay.
older sensibility,
I understand.
maybe a little bit more charming with a bit more character. Things that are not things, but experiences.
Okay, understand.
And that's why it's great if the Apple Watch gets you into watches and you wind up moving to the luxury realm, that's wonderful, but I'm not sure it's going to be the bridge for younger people that I've seen proposed in the watch media.
I can understand that.
I think it's more likely that people who are into charming, older, quirky things come to the watches, like these kind of watches,
Right.
by that means.
Well, that was the way you got into them, I believe, right?
Yeah, I was into cars when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, I was into weird old stuff, and when everyone was into beer in college, I'm like, I don't know, I'm not into Beast, I don't want to rage. This
me.
brown stuff, this is good. So that's kind of my sensibility. I realize the world does not resemble me.
I think that there's a lot of different avenues, and while I agree with you that being into any type of mechanics would definitely get you into watches. So if you're into cars when you're younger, and then you make yourself some money, some expendable income, then wearing something that's mechanical makes sense to you, and it's going to be something that's going to drive you. But I will say that I can see the Apple Watch being a gateway in the sense that people aren't really wearing watches, so it gets you used to that,
Yeah, I can see that being the way.
Yeah.
So I do want to answer a question that came through from Eric Nielsen, and he asked was that Oldsmobile, was that an Oldsmobile you just flashed on the screen? Yes, I believe that was a 1966 Olds Toronado. There it is right there, and I can see from the grill, yes, it is indeed a 66. Thank you so much, Sean. I appreciate that. Okay, so I had a question from Eric Nielsen before the question about the Oldsmobile regarding whether or not the Blancpain Bathyscaphe was going to be a collectible. If you have an original one, yes. The newer one, there's only one model that I think is clearly a collectible, and that is the ceramized version. From the first year it was out. They made about 100 of them, and then they stopped because they weren't comfortable with the manufacturing process. If you find one of those, yes. But the ceramic case, the steel case, anything metal, no. Not yet. Not while it's still in production, not while it's so close to release, not with so many available, new and pre-owned. Okay, Josh?
Yep.
Speaking of cars and watches, so I have my theory on classic cars.
Yeah.
Breitling for Bentley. The Bentley GT Dark Sapphire, limited edition of 500.
Yeah.
VW Bentley, they blur the line there these days with the design and engineering, just released the 2018 Continental GT, and it is only the first new platform since this model launched in 2003. The old one went back almost to the inception of the Breitling for Bentley partnership.
Right.
And Danny, I know you got one, and it's a great car. Thank you for letting me drive it. When you get the speed camera tickets, just forward them my way. But okay, so the car has significantly better proportions than the first one, but that's besides the point. This is a 48 millimeter 500-piece limited edition from Breitling, and even they don't know what it's going to cost, and I called them, and that's what they told me, in bright light polymer composite, so very kind of a plastic light, ultralight resin. Josh, black and blue detailing, diamond patterned bezel and dial.
Right.
Who is this watch for?
Bentley owner, I guess. I mean, I'd say
Makes
that.
sense.
Well, so it's funny. We were actually having a discussion about this in the office about a week or so ago. And the thing is, Bentley make unbelievable cars, right? It's not gimmicky. They're truly fantastically well-made cars, right? I think that there needs to be a revamp on this on the Breitling for Bentley model because the watches are a little oversized. Right, they made what was it, the Mark? Was it a Mark V or there was a?
I believe it was the Mark VI. I want to say
Mark VI that was like a 42 millimeter.
It was a really nice watch
Yeah,
too.
so that's in my opinion that's what they should be going towards, a little bit more elegant as opposed to kind of in your face. Because the Bentley owners, in my opinion, the people that I've met who own Bentleys, they're not in your face type people, right? They're not Maserati owners.
Right.
They're not wearing Bulgaris.
They're not Ferrari or Lamborghini owners.
That's right.
You might have one of both. But the point is, when you're driving your Bentley, you don't want to be the Lamborghini owner.
Right.
You want to project a different image. It's the supercar you can use without, kids in slammed Civics with stanced rims coming up, filling their camera phone memory, trying to take pictures. When you drive your Bentley, you want some performance, you want some punch, but you just want kind of to be left alone and be comfortable.
Exactly. And I mean, so the flash of the Breitling Bentley, in my opinion, doesn't really reflect the car. Maybe it did originally when they had the partnership, but I think there needs to be a revamp. But I digress. The watch is pretty cool. Breitling material, very, very comfortable. And it is a cool concept, and I think what was the limited edition?
500.
They're going to sell a 500, it won't be a question. So the watch itself, super cool. I think the partnership needs to be revamped, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think, like Josh said, it's time to reconsider what a Breitling for Bentley watch looks like. Not saying there can't be a giant one, just like every once in a while, Bentley will do a car like the Brooklyns, which was the size of the White House and just as heavy and just as controversial these days. But the bottom line is that every once in a while you can have a Breitling for Bentley watch like that, but let's also have something that's a little bit understated, a little bit more British in its sensibility. It can be rich and fine and wonderful and prestigious and exclusive, like a Bentley. Let's have something maybe for the guy who drives a Bentley but doesn't have a Bentley-sized wrist.
Yeah.
And then also, let's consider maybe making the line more exclusive. Like, wouldn't it be really cool if there were a fight for these Breitling for Bentley limited editions when they came out?
Yeah.
Like, look at this. Apple makes millions of Apple Watches, but people are sitting there waiting to get them.
Yeah, camping out.
It's a matter of matching demand to the supply.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They were camping out at your shop in China years ago.
Oh yeah, well there's that too. No, but when I was buying iPhones, when they came out, they're selling as many as they possibly could, and people were camping out. So creating that kind of buzz around a watch, it can exist as well. I mean, there's Panerai just did it with their with the Submersible. What is it, the 731?
Yeah, the 731, the boutique edition, online boutique edition.
Online boutique. Every single watch sold out immediately, and all for full retail. There's no discounts, obviously. Like things like that make sense for a brand to do, and I think like doing that with a Bentley would make sense as well.
Yeah. So Breitling, you can still sell, a 250,000 watches a year, but the Bentley line itself, maybe it's time to make that as exclusive and prestigious as a Bentley itself.
Yeah.
As Apple has proved, you can do that with a $400 smartwatch as long as you balance supply and demand.
Yeah.
New management, George Kern's at the helm. I think you'll probably see something like that.
Listen, good luck. Hopefully it works out,
Now, here's a car converted from an aviation fuel tank. There's really no smooth introduction to that, although the car itself is quite smooth. Okay, so in honor of the famous belly tank racers of Bonneville, basically taking a World War II fighter plane drop tank, which is already quite nicely streamlined. They've done all the math for you already, and then building a V8 and axles into it. Bell Ross, a company that loves both aviation and cars, they're gearheads after our own hearts, have launched the Bell Ross Bellytanker Collection. A little bit of an awkward name, but some cool watches, and I think they offer real value because you're looking at the BRV192 Bellytanker Limited Edition Automatic, 38.5 millimeters stainless steel, copper metallic dial, and they sweated the details. There's an airplane-shaped counterweight to the seconds hand. There's a disc for the date that's the same color as the dial. Audemars Piguet wasn't getting that right on the 15202 for the better part of a decade. Good attention to detail, Bell & Ross. And at $2,300, I think a pretty good value for an automatic Swiss watch.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now, the BR V294 Bellytanker Chronograph Limited Edition, based on the Generation 3 vintage collection, and I will also say, unashamedly flaunting a little bit of mid-60s Rolex Daytona about it, but still a good value on a full bracelet for $4,300. You can also get it on leather. But Josh, what do you think of these watches? Both below $5,000. Gorgeous, practical, durable, 100-meter water resistant.
Yeah, well, so I know Bell & Ross, like when you think of Bell & Ross, think of square watches, right? So this is a nice investment in watches other than square because like their heritage line is the round case watches, and they don't tend to sell very well to retail or hold a lot of value. So this is a cool way for them to reintroduce that case shape. And I think it's cool. And at the price point, they're not going crazy. They're not trying to punch above their level. They're kind of staying within their range and creating a new watch that looks almost exactly like a Daytona, though.
Yeah, a little bit. But you know what? If you're going to steal from the best. Plus, it's a double register. Rolex's tri-compacts. There you go.
Can't beat them, cheat them, right?
I mean, it's more case profile and bezel. I'm getting a little vintage Rolex. The dial is very much Bell & Ross's own, and a nice color. The copper color is beautiful. I've seen that done on Roger Dubuis that cost multiples of what this watch.
Oh yeah.
But here's the other thing: Bell & Ross. When I see their watches for $25,000, I often say it's a nice watch. I'm not sure if I'm willing to make that leap. When I see something like this for sub-5 and it's a great Swiss watch for a very affordable price,
ring me up.
I say go for it. This is what Bell & Ross does best. Now a question coming through, Josh. This is from Brick Lane. Hello, Josh. Is the Rolex Yachtmaster 116621 a good buy, and keep, or should I go with the Blancpain 50 Fathoms? Okay, so in general, when comparing any Rolex to any Blancpain, what's the first rule of thumb? You're talking about value retention.
Well, so the thing is, he's talking about the two-tone Yachtmaster as well. Yes. So, and we know that two-tone usually is like the third category, right? Or it's the second or third category.
Well, it's two-tone, but it's rose gold two-tone.
Right. So, I mean, the watch is good. It's not going to hold the value of a stainless steel Rolex. It's going to hold more value at retail, against retail, than a Blancpain will, like probably any Blancpain, right?
So the other thing to ask is this going to hold its value better than the steel and platinum Yachtmaster?
Depending on which dial color you're talking about, right? So
we're talking about let's talk about the hottest, latest one. Ruthenium, blue accents, platinum bezel, steel bracelet came out in 2016, versus the 116621, which has a chocolate sunburst dial, rose gold bezel, rose gold links.
Yeah, I'd say that there's less two-tone buyers out there for true two-tone with the yellow gold or rose gold and stainless steel. So I'd say that the platinum bezel and stainless steel is going to hold more value than the two-tone, but both those are going to hold probably more value than the Blancpain.
Here's the thing: the Blancpain, The 50 Fathoms 5015 is a gorgeous watch, but you're also talking about a watch that, by virtue of its sheer size, rules out a lot of people who would pick the Rolex on the basis of its size and its fit.
Right.
So you're looking at a smaller market for the Blancpain. Even though it fits well for a 45, it's still a 45.
Yeah.
It's hard to pull off as a dress watch unless you've got a really big wrist and you wear really big cuffs. And on top of that, you know, they also serve different purposes. The Blancpain has a 5-day power reserve, a sapphire bezel. It's a real dive watch. The Yachtmaster's not a diver.
No.
It's a very upscale, water-resistant watch that's more of a dresser with a
Right.
rotating bezel.
Yeah, it's essentially, that is like their dressiest sport watch you can buy, right? And you see that in regards to the value retention, because if you compare that to any of the Submariners or the GMTs, they're light years apart as well.
Yes.
There's still going to be a devaluation for any of the Yachtmasters across the board. My favorite, and one that I believe holds the most value out of all of them right now, is that the blue dial, so the predecessor to the ruthenium dial.
Yes. I would say if you want to compare something in the Blancpain current catalog to any 40mm Rolex sports watch, I would look at something like the Bathyscaphe 38, or I would look at the Tribute to Mil-Spec 50 Fathoms in 40mm.
Yeah.
Then you're looking at watches that are much more apples to apples in terms of fit and potential buyer, because the person who wants a 40mm Rolex, even a two-tone one, is probably someone whose tastes are a little bit less flamboyant than someone who's buying a 45mm full polished case sapphire bezel dive watch.
Right. Well, you look at it like this, and we'll move on after this. But you know, when you're talking about value retention, a lot of times it has to do with the size of the market of the buyers who are looking, you know, to buy that watch pre-owned. There are many more people looking to own one Rolex as opposed to owning one Blancpain. A Blancpain owner is usually going to be a collector. Someone's going to have multiple watches. They're going to be a little bit more savvy, and they're going to be, it's more of like a take it or leave it. Whereas a Rolex owner, a lot of people, if they're going to own one luxury watch, it's going to be a Rolex. So they're going to pick one out of the lineup. And maybe they're going to be pre-owned buyers looking for a little bit of a value. But there's many more of those people looking for that watch than there are going to be of that Blancpain, regardless of technical, you know.
So assuming you're not willing to go to one of the smaller 50 Fathoms, either the Bathyscaphe 38 or the Tribute to Mil-Spec 40mm, then go with the Rolex. If you're going to go with a Rolex Yachtmaster, go with the 116622 if you're interested in resale value, because the Platinum, whether with a blue sunburst or the dark rhodium dial, is going to be the better resale play. And ultimately, if you want the best resale, I'd probably say green dial sub.
No, right now, without a doubt, yeah.
Outside the scope of the discussion, but that's the play for resale. Now, a question coming through. This is from Aaron Murphy, who's asking thoughts on the long-term value interest on an Omega Aquaterra Spectre, the blue dial. Guys, in case you're forgetting this watch, because it was a little bit overshadowed by the Seamaster 300 Spectre, which was a far more limited edition and a far more heralded watch. The Aquaterra Spectre was a limited edition of only 15,007 pieces. So there are two different halves. Yeah, exactly. Limited to how many they could sell, but it was a beautiful watch. Given a choice between the two, I would actually take that because I like the yellow highlights, I like the blue dial, and I'm not into dive watches in general. So I would take that on the basis of its appearance. But Josh, which one do you buy as the resale play? The Spectre Diver,
right.
The Seamaster 300,
yeah,
or the Aquaterra. And where does the Aquaterra Spectre, with basically 15,000 made, sit as a store of value?
Not much. The Aquaterra line, I think we've spoken about before, it's kind of like a middling piece, right? It's not full Seamaster, it's not full dive watch, so that watch doesn't get a lot of respect in the market. So without a doubt, the most collectible watch, the one that's going to be the investment, the one that's going to trade closest, or actually right now I think it sells, the Spectre 300 Master Coaxial is going to sell at retail currently.
Yes.
Right? So that's a watch.
2 years later.
Right, yeah. That's a watch that's still, I think I have a customer who had it listed on eBay. He sold it for $8,400 on eBay, which is above retail. I haven't personally seen that, so that's anecdotal evidence, but I believe him as well. So the Aquaterra is going to be a cool watch. It's going to be something that's probably a little bit more wearable. I had my Master Coaxial, it was the same case, same movement, all that. Wore a little too large for me on the bracelet. On the strap, it's fantastic. On the bracelet, it wore a little too large, so I had to move it out of my collection. But the much more collectible watch is going to be that Spectre 300M.
In terms of popularity, you have to remember there are now 3 families of Seamaster out there. The flagship is the Planet Ocean. Probably the most popular in terms of volume is the Seamaster 300, the direct descendant of that original Pierce Brosnan Seamaster 300. Many variants, all very popular, great resale market. And then the third Seamaster, just in general, this is separate from the Spectre version. The third Seamaster in terms of popularity is the Aquaterra.
Yeah.
No rotating bezel, it's not a dive watch. It's probably the most direct descendant of the 1948 Seamaster, which was a water-resistant dress watch, not a diver. We didn't get a Seamaster diver till 1957 with the Seamaster 300. And since 2002, when the Aquaterra came out, it's the most direct descendant of what was previously called the Seamaster 120. So it's a very water-resistant dress watch. And there's just a smaller market for that. But what do I think of the Spectre Aquaterra? I think it's a beautiful watch, and I would love to own it.
Yeah, well, it has like on the case back the bullet, the rotor is almost like a bullet casing, right?
And even more visible, it has yellow and blue accents with the Bond coat of arms on the dial itself.
That's right.
But it's discreet enough that it just looks like a texture.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us.
We're not going all night?
You know what? This is not going to be the 24-hour live cast. That's in the works, guys. I would love it to coincide with something like a race. Le Mans, it's my birthday next year, June 2018. The 24-hour broadcast, Watch You Want. You know, stay tuned. Stay tuned. Red Bull and Monster.
Tequila for me. That'll
exactly.
keep me awake and crazy.
He'll wake up for the last hour. It's going to be like the 1949 24 hours. Luigi Cinetti, Lord Selston.
Yeah, everyone got that reference, by the way.
Wikipedia, guys. Wikipedia, it's your friend. All right, thank you so much, Josh.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for bearing with me as we jump through that chaotic episode. All you guys out there, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. We're going to have a special feature this Sunday. If you've ever wanted to have a conversation with the founders of Bremont, well, guess what? That's happening.
Yeah.
Tim, Nick, and Giles this Sunday on Watch You Want Inc. on YouTube. Guys, thank you so much. I'm Tim, he's Josh. They're the 3 amigos. This is Watch You Want. Thanks for logging on.
See ya.